Cameroon's capital Yaoundé was the place to be for urban music fans and art lovers. The city hosted the first edition of the Meskel Festival by the Douala art festival Domaf. Music and eye-catching street artworks like this piece by Guy Kwekam and Kelly on the facade of the French Institute in Yaoundé attracted many passing by the busy Avenue Kennedy on Saturday and Sunday. During 2 days, street art was put under the spotlight in this famous section of Cameroon's capital. If one can mention art in relation with the development goals for the millennium, here eccentric artists did also prepare for the future. They were creating the clothing trends of 2050. 3 fashion designers joined forces to imagine what fashion could look like by the mid-21st century. We went with the flow of the Domaf festival theme, which is "Tomorrow is Yesterday." So we designed garments trying to figure out what clothing in 2050 could look like. We work with everything from wood to aluminum or kitchen utensils. We call it upcycling. You'll wonder why upcycle at all? Because clothes or objects that were created do not have the right to die. Clad in flashy colors, models were essential parts of the project, and they were on the same page with the designers. Anything anyone creates should not be forgotten because it bears the image of its creator. He let his spirit work, so we have to promote his work. Shoes, fabric, or even objects, nothing is lost here. Everything can be transformed. If the future is on everyone's minds, it is because the festival organizers were inspired by the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and partnered with civil society actors. The event was also highly influenced by the Abidjan market for performing arts, Massa. It is the first time that we replicate the experience of the Massa zone outside of Abidjan, so it is good that it takes place in Yaoundé, the capital, on a busy avenue, which is a lively spot in the city. Over the weekend, the public loafed around the Kennedy Avenue, discovering music genres, traditional Cameroonian dances, and participating in workshops. Various actors also raised awareness on sustainable development during the festival.
Thousands of Ethiopian Orthodox Christians celebrating the annual Meskel Festival in the capital Addis Ababa. But this year, the usually joyous festivities are overshadowed by the ongoing conflict in the northern Tigray region, and religious and civil leaders have been calling for peace. The Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Abuni Matthias, says if followers of Jesus Christ neglect forgiveness and reconciliation, then they've abandoned the cross and surrendered to sin. The day commemorates the discovery by the Roman Empress Centelina in the 4th century of the so-called true cross on which Jesus Christ was believed to have been crucified. Priest Tsegay Gide says the cross signifies reconciliation. It restored peace and abolished conflicts. He believes the war between what he describes as our 2 brothers should be solved through reconciliation, saying it's imperative that they agree to live in peace as they did before. As hundreds of priests, musicians and singers wearing white robes celebrate the day, security is tight in Meskel Square. Meron Tesfahun says her big prayer is for God to help Ethiopians get through this time and bring back their previous love. We must all fall to our knees and pray for peace, she says. The conflict, which broke out almost 2 years ago, has spilt over into other regions of the country and seen thousands of people die. As the annual bonfire is lit, people across Ethiopia are praying for peace and an end to the civil war. Former French President François Hollande visiting the National Museum in the Congolese capital Kinshasa. His visit comes at a time when there's been a resurgence in violence in the east of the country. Hollande used the opportunity to call for a more effective United Nations force to help bring about peace in the region. He says he will travel to the east of the DRC because it's an area that is unfortunately still very troubled, and there are many civilian victims. Hollande adds that French President Emmanuel Macron has taken the initiative to promote peace in that region and to bring an end to foreign interference and the attacks that are committed there, and also the aggressions of which women are the victims. There's been much criticism recently of the United Nations force in the DRC, with demonstrators calling for it to leave the country, saying that after 20 years of presence, MONUSCO still has not brought about peace. But Hollande believes this would be a mistake. He says it will undoubtedly be one of the responsibilities of UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and also the French, who are in charge of peacekeeping missions, to set up a force that is much more efficient and even able to go into combat with the groups that terrorize the people. Hollande's next stop will be in the eastern city of Bukavu for the inauguration of a new ward at the hospital of renowned Congolese gynecologist and Nobel Peace Laureate Denis Mukwege. Former Ghanaian dictator Moussa Dadis Camara and several of his co-defendants were sent to prison on Tuesday after a brief court appearance. In all, 11 former military and government officials will go on trial from Wednesday for their role in a 2009 massacre at a stadium in the capital Conakry. Camara is being accused of sending the police and soldiers into the venue during a peaceful pro-democracy rally. They cordoned off the exits and opened fire indiscriminately on the crowd. Over 150 people died and more than 100 women were raped during the attack. 13 years later, the victims and families are still waiting for justice. They say they hope it will not be a mock trial and that they will finally hear the truth. The events of the 28th of September 2009 will forever be etched into the memories of Ghanaians, but it's hoped that something positive will come out of the trial. The Justice Minister says the proceedings will ensure that the country comes out with a new vision in which impunity will no longer have a place.
The fertile and lush lands of northern Rwanda are familiar to infamous Félicien Kabuga. The 89-year-old, whose trial opens in The Hague on Thursday, grew up here in Nyange before making a fortune. Kabuga was charged with genocide and crimes against humanity. He's suspected of being one of the 1994 genocide financier, an accusation that remains surreal to his cousin. He bought machetes, hoes and all sorts of things to resell them. When people say he bought machetes for the purpose of killing people, I can't confirm that. Born to a modest farming family, Kabuga's first jobs included peddling items door to door. He then moved to Kigali, where he opened shops. Reports say he owned a tea plantation, as well as apartments and warehouses. Whenever Jean-Baptiste Munyaneze steps into Kabuga's former family house, memories resurface. He used to throw parties and invite all of his neighbors. And at these parties, he would talk to everyone. There were always many of us, but he gave a warm welcome to each one. By 1994, Kabuga was said to be one of Rwanda's richest men, and as much as his wealth grew, so did his political connections. Kabuga headed the National Defense Fund. These funds were allegedly allocated to equip the army and Hutu militias. I have been working on this plantation since I was 15. At the time, Kabuga was the owner and he paid us well. But I don't know anything about his crimes. I was a child at the time. Kabuga's affluence enabled him to avoid arrest attempts and move from countries to countries before he was caught in France in 2020. The 1994 genocide claimed the lives of more than 800,000 Rwandans.